Hi there, I'm Tanya, and you are listening to Human and Holy. Today's episode is a conversation with Nechama Dina Hendel, all the way from Baka, Jerusalem, and it's a tearjerker, or at least it was for me. This is a really special episode, and I'm very excited to share it with you. And before we get to the actual episode, I just want to take a quick minute to thank our sponsors who make our work possible. Today's episode sponsors are Tovido and Zelda Hair. Tovido is an online subscription platform of Jewish videos for children of all ages, and I'm very passionate about the work that they do, providing Jewish content in a really safe and accessible way for Jewish children. The media that we consume has such a deep impact on our lives and our psyches and our consciousness. I'm so passionate about this. Obviously, I create media, and I'm just grateful that they do the work that they do, and I really recommend it for any Jewish family that gives their kids screen time to have access to this incredible platform where they create original content and also get all the classics for your children. We have a Human and Holy code for you, HH10, and all the information is in the show notes. Thank you to Vito for partnering with us. Our second partner for today's episode is Zelda Hair. Zelda Hair is a wig company that obviously creates beautiful wigs at an affordable price and all the good things, and also just has a really beautiful ethos behind the brand of seeking to support women in their hair covering in just a beautiful, uplifted, spiritual way. Check them out. All the links are in the show notes. Thank you, Zelda Hair, for being our partner and bringing the work into the world. If you are a brand or an individual who loves what Human and Holy does and wants to support our work, especially as you may have noticed, we've been elevating and upgrading to video and just expanding our content. Email us at info@humanandholy.com about ways that you can get involved. We're so grateful to our sponsors. Thank you for helping us bring our work into the world. Nechama Dina, welcome to Human and Holy. I'm so excited to have you here today, and to you're here all the way from Israel. So it's so special that we get to have this chance to speak and to hear a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're going through right now. And before we get started, I would love if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and yeah, then we'll talk more. But let's begin with that.
Thank you, Tanya. So I am a shlucha in Baka, a neighborhood in Yerushalayim. We also direct the Friendship Circle of South Jerusalem. And it's wonderful to be here with you on the show today. And I'm happy to share some fresh stories and incidents and just real and beautiful people who are walking the streets of Jerusalem every single day.
Where in Jerusalem do you live?
So it's the Baka neighborhood. Not everybody knows where that is, but it's near the German colony, near Emek Refaim. And actually, we focus on Olim, which are residents.
Okay.
Not residents, they're immigrants who come from all over the world. And we do English-speaking programming. And it's a lot of people who leave their families behind for this idealistic belief in coming to Eretz Yisrael. So our community is really like a family to all the people there.
It's very special. You're from Connecticut originally. So what was that like for you moving from Connecticut to Israel?
It's funny that you ask because my husband actually grew up in Migdal Emek in Israel, although his parents are American Canadians who were sent by the Rebbe as the original 30 couples. This was around 1970. The Rebbe handpicked these 30 individuals. I don't know if it was couples or individuals, to be his shluchim in Eretz Yisrael. And my in-laws, Rabbi and Rebbitzin Hendel of Migdal Emek, were part of this handpicked group. So my husband grew up in Israel, but he's an English speaker, and we dated here, actually in Connecticut. And my mother said when we were going out, she said, make sure to ask him, make sure that he's not planning on shlichus in Israel,
of course.
Because we're a very close-knit family. You probably know that.
Yeah.
We're sort of related.
Yeah.
And she said, I can't have you going so far. You have to check early on in the dating. And of course, I asked my husband while we were dating in this beautiful hotel in Greenwich. And he said, no, I don't connect with the Israeli culture. I like the American style much more. We'll do shlichus in the States. If anything, Australia. He was a shliach in Australia, and that was definitely not. So shlichus in the States. And we started out in Florida. We were helping the shluchim there. We were teaching in the school. And then what happened was we were married already about 5 years. And my brother-in-law, Levi, was one of the 3 Bachrim. It was a very famous incident. This happened actually 18 years ago on Hanukkah. 8 Bachrim were in a car on Hanukkah traveling to Eilat to an army base to bring donuts and do a menorah lighting. And actually, my brother-in-law, Levi, at the young age of 13, gave up his Hanukkah vacation because he wanted to do Miftzayim. And really tragically, the car went over a cliff.
My God.
And 3 of the Bachrim passed away from this car accident, including my brother-in-law, Levi Hendel. We were living in Florida. I'll never forget. I mean, the shock, the grief, everything. My husband immediately, of course, flew to Israel for the Shiva and everything. And over that year, this idea just somehow, it budded and it blossomed. And we said, maybe our place is in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe we should start this Chabad house for English speakers in Levi's memory. On his yahrzeit, on Hanukkah, a year later, after he passed away 17 years ago, with 3 little pitzalach, 3 small children, we moved to Israel. Wow. We didn't have so much of a plan, I have to say. I mean, we had spoken a little bit. I knew I had a job in Mayanot. So I was excited. It was just opening the women's program. Mm-hmm. Rabbi Levinger, I remember he called. I literally, just landed with suitcases. When are you coming to Mayanot? We need to talk. And
you can start today. You can literally start today.
We did speak to some shluchim. We found out that there were English speakers in the Baka neighborhood. So we had this idea. When we actually arrived, it was a lot more legwork than we had imagined to take off this plan.
Yeah.
But we started this Chabad house, and it's called Beit Levi, Chabad of Baka Beit Levi.
So special.
In Levi's memory. So you asked me, what's it like for a girl from New Haven to move to Eretz Yisrael? It absolutely was not in the cards.
Right.
Like I said, while we were dating, it was cleared.
Right.
It's like it was off the table.
There's no way I'm moving there.
And then 5 years later, I call my mother and I say, so actually,
right.
So we're planning to move to Eretz Yisrael. My parents took it very well, I have to say. Mm-hmm. They're that's a good place to visit. Okay. And Baruch Hashem, I think they do feel really happy and proud, and all of my family, that there's a representative in Eretz Yisrael, especially now at this tenuous, challenging, transformative time. We feel a big schos to be in Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Hashem, getting ready to welcome Mashiach, as we're fighting these last fights and overcoming the darkness and the evil. So it was a huge, huge culture shock coming to Israel. I have to say, one of the ways that I was willing to do it, and we discussed this, my husband and I, we said it's going to be a trial.
Okay.
Because just mentally, I just thought I can't make this commitment. And the first year was excruciatingly difficult. Oh. I remember me and the kids, we got every virus. We were constantly at this Pat Cholim at the I don't know, our bodies weren't used to it. It was we were coming from Florida, and we made Aliyah Hanukkah, which is
cold.
The frigid winter. It's not even so cold in
compared
Israel,
to
honestly,
the East Coast.
But you don't have the insulated heating, and therefore it gets into your bones. Yeah. I remember thinking, that was not so wise. We should have moved from Florida in the summertime,
when it's hot and
appreciate the weather upgrade. But I mean, not only, so that's just health wise, but I'm saying the language and the culture, etc. And I remember it really took a full year until I was able to say I live here, not I'm maybe living here, trying it out here, kind of a thing.
Trial is so smart. Yeah, that's really smart.
That's how we were able to make the move. And slowly, to the point, in the beginning, when I would fly back to see my family here in America, it would feel like I was coming back home. And then, it's changing, when it's the airplane lands in Ben Gurion, and I'm wow, I'm home. In Eretz Yisrael. Definitely. I mean, we felt that way already for a while.
It's so special to have your home in Eretz Yisrael and to have that feeling of home and peace there.
I love visiting. I love seeing my family. I love visiting. But what I'm saying is it shifted over time to I'm an American girl who's
in Israel,
temporarily living right here in Israel, to wow, I'm a proud to be living in Eretz Yisrael, and I love visiting and seeing everybody here in America.
Wow. Must be like so peaceful to have that shift, to know like, this is especially because it is our home as Jewish people, to also experience that on a personal level seems very special to me.
Absolutely. I mean, people tell us all the time, they're like, you guys won the jackpot. You mean you're shluchim and you get to live in Yerushalayim? Like the people in our community, they're like, how did you get that location? You know. Well,
you've created something so special. I've seen your Chabad in action. I think one of the hardest things for English speakers or Americans or anyone who moves to Israel that doesn't necessarily like identify with the Israeli culture, the Middle Eastern culture as much, to have a place like your Chabad that really caters to the Anglo community is so special. You have the most gorgeous community, the most gorgeous programming, and just like I've seen it in action, and it's such a special place. And you also teach in my note. You still teach in my note today.
So I'm not a regular teacher there anymore.
Okay.
But I'm very connected, and I get to do for bringing.
Nice.
They volunteer with us in Friendship Circle. So I'm still in the teachers group.
Okay.
But I'm not presently like
not teaching
teacher.
weekly.
I'm teaching a lot more in the community. We have like twice a week. Our women's group meets like Tuesday mornings, Torah and Team. It's a Shabbos. We have a Shar B'tachon.
I love that.
Malka. So.
Oh my gosh, guys, steal that idea. That's a good idea.
Shar B'tachon.
Ma'ita Shabbos, like Shar B'tachon Lava Malka. Like that whole.
The whole vibe.
The whole vibe, like everything together. I love that idea.
I had a friend who encouraged me to start it. Funnily enough, interestingly enough, she's not part of the group anymore. I was like, Motzei Shabbos, like maybe once in a while as a regular thing. Who's going to want to leave their houses?
Right.
And even once she left the group, all these other women were looking forward so much to like starting the week with this boost of inspiration.
Yes. Also, my
the truth is that we actually evolved into Tanya. I know that's your thing, right?
Yeah, I love Tanya. Yeah.
We did Shara B'tachon like 2 full cycles, the whole thing.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So now we're doing Tanya, but it's like a discussion group.
Yeah.
It's not a
lecture or
no.
Right.
It's not a lecture at all.
Okay.
Which is nice. It ends up being like Shara B'tachon was basically like group therapy, for.
What was the most impactful thing that you studied or taught or discussed from Shara B'tachon? Or one impactful thing. It doesn't have to be the most.
For me, the most impactful thing was just like hearing people's insights. Because Shara B'tachon is really all about living in the present, living joyfully.
Right.
Hashem has my back. Hashem created me. He loves me. He's with me every single moment. But hearing some of these women, it's very humbling.
Right.
Like a woman who's divorced and she was in an abusive relationship for so many years, and how the bitachon carried her through.
Right.
And took her into healing. For me, that was the most humbling thing.
Yeah.
People really have all kinds of stories. I'm sure you know that.
That's right. And so just to see the bitachon play out in someone's life was so moving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know. I think you learn the most profound Torah through seeing people's experiences of it. I really do, because the idea comes alive in such a rich way, and to see people like actually apply those ideas in such difficult circumstances. That's beautiful. Okay. So as you mentioned, like you are living in Israel right now during a very challenging and hopefully sometimes beautiful, but very painful time. And you have a lot of connections to people who have lost, and you're obviously like boots on the ground supporting people. Can you tell us like what is the experience like for you right now as an Israeli Jewish woman? And yeah,
absolutely.
Like comes to mind.
Everybody's lives changed on Simchas Torah last year. Like I don't think anyone can say their life is exactly the same. How much more so, living in Yerushalayim. It started with a Simchas Torah that we were in our safe room with all these sirens. Remember, we had seminary guests. They slept through it. Their room is a safe room, so it's fine. But, immediately our shlichus took like a little bit of a shift, because it's like, what's the call of the hour?
Right.
So even though, we have a community, we have a friendship circle, all of a sudden we became shluchim for soldiers, which we had never been doing before.
Oh, interesting.
It was the call of the hour.
Yeah.
We have like a restaurant under our Chabad house, and we work with this chef. His name is Uzi from Yafale. So we were able to get wholesale prices on meals. So we send hundreds, thousands of meals to soldiers because everybody wants to do something.
Yeah.
So here we have an outlet. So we're able to package the foods in the restaurant. And then of course, you get the interaction of bringing it to the soldiers. And together with the physical nourishment, we were bringing Shara B'Tachon books, Chitas books for soldiers. We started a campaign to wrap tefillin with soldiers. And this was particularly for Rachel Goldberg-Polin. So they live in our neighborhood. I'm actually good friends with Rachel Goldberg-Polin, who was even on the front cover of Times. So she's pretty well known. She says she wishes she didn't become famous for such a terrible thing, because her son, was hostage in Gaza for these 11 excruciating months in the dark tunnels. I mean, he was literally emaciated. When after all this time, and Rachel was rallying around the world, and she started a week of kindness and good deeds. She got so many people to add in mitzvahs. She got so many people to unite, because her voice somehow resonated with secular, religious, Jews, non-Jews, and always a voice of goodness, of faith in Hashem. She always believed that he's going to come home, and after those 11 months, right? Unfortunately, we didn't have the outcome that we were all davening and doing all the mitzvahs for, but Rachel Goldberg-Polin still came out talking about Shara B'Tachon with this incredible faith and resilience. At the funeral, I was here at the Levaya with thousands of people. People came from all over. It was really, really incredible. And at the funeral, she says, I want to thank Hashem. I want to express my akar satov to Hashem for giving me the gift of being Hirsch's mother for these 23 years. And we will survive, and we will prevail. I know I'm going to get a lump in my throat, and I'm going to have all these, living with the loss and the grief, but I'm going to live and have children and grandchildren named Hirsch, and we're going to win the fight, of light over darkness and good over evil. So these are the women, and these are the people that I'm surrounded with on a daily basis. So I was saying about, now I realize my tangent, I was talking about the tefillin.
Yeah.
So Hirsch,
that wasn't a tangent.
Immediately when he was kidnapped, already he was missing a limb, because while they were at the Nova Festival and they were in this migunit, which is a shelter, 30 people stuffed in, and his friend Avner became a hero because he was throwing the grenades back. He was killed then. He was trying to protect the people inside. Hirsch's left arm was blown off with a grenade. And we came to know the Goldberg-Polin family because a mutual friend from our friendship circle asked if we would check their mezuzahs. So we came and we checked their mezuzahs, and it was really surprising because even though Rachel said they were brand new mezuzahs, expensive ones, only one mezuzah in the house was kosher. So we replaced all the mezuzahs, and including in Hirsch's room, where 2 times the letter Beis was pasel, like a Beis, which looks like bayit, like home, that he should be able to come home. So everything was corrected, and his tefillin were also repaired. And that's how this relationship developed. But what I remember is I had this thought after I met Rachel. It was like an immediate connection. She is that kind of person.
She's
everybody feels like they're Rachel's best friend.
I feel like I know her. I've never met her.
I'm not so special that I'm her friend. Everybody literally.
No, you are, because you're actually her friend. So you are special.
I think I'm actually
We just think we're her friends because we know her
she
online.
She's that type of person. She's a total inspiration. And actually she shared with me how much she loves Chabad, and her parents, who were completely secular, became religious through Chabad in Chicago, the Moskowitz.
Wow.
They're Shomer Kosher and Shabbos.
Wow.
And she continued that by coming to Israel. And they're also, keeping Shabbos, keeping kosher, davening, full of emunah and bitachon. So after I met her, I thought to myself, I don't know why I had this inspiration that I want to give one of my dollars of the Rebbe to Rachel, as a safekeeping that, for her to come back home. And I try to actually write letters often. This was one of my more recent hachlatas.
To the Rebbe?
To the Rebbe, to send to the aisle. I accumulate them for my visits to the aisle. So, but I'm trying, we're shluchim, I'm trying to update, not only to ask, of course, there's always things to ask brachas from Hashem and the Rebbe should daven for us, but also to report about the activities in the Chabad house, etc. So I wrote this pun also sharing that I had met the Goldberg-Polin family and about Hirsch, and that I was thinking of giving $1. And oftentimes I open letters from the Igros Kodesh after just really to get inspiration.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, I'll open a letter. Just like one of my chitas, open a letter because, I don't know, I feel a lot of inspiration from the Rebbe's words to people, normal people like ourselves, guidance in real life issues. And a lot of times you can see a hashgacha pratis. I just wrote to the Rebbe. I just tried to have this act of iskashra. So anyhow, I opened the letter. It's a letter from Aleph Sivan, Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And the Rebbe is writing about an ish chayil, which means like a man of valor, who had injured his left arm. And the Rebbe says this, well, you write to me about the injury of his left arm and he's in the hospital recuperating. The Rebbe says that the left arm is associated with tefillin, right? Because if someone is a righty, you put the tefillin on the left hand. Interestingly, Hirsch was a lefty.
Okay.
So actually, he would put tefillin
on the
right hand. But left hand is associated. It's a limb that's associated with the mitzvah of tefillin. So the Rebbe writes over there, check with this, because it wasn't written to the ish chayil, but a person who was writing for a man of valor who had injured his left hand, that when he was by me last summer, I spoke to him about being careful with tefillin, and whatever happened in the past happened, but he should be careful very much with the mitzvah of tefillin and shmiras Shabbos Kodesh and the observance of Shabbos. And this was the Rebbe's advice, we should hear good news, etc. So, of course, I was really blown away because that's Hirsch's injury was his left hand. I shared the letter with Rachel. She was moved. It was also Chicago. That's where she comes from. There's like different connections. But what we took from the letter was whatever happened, but what can we do? Because everyone wants to feel like we can do something. What we could do for Hirsch is we can get other people. Well, first of all, his tefillin were repaired.
Right.
But also we can get other people to wrap tefillin for Hirsch ben Parochana.
Right.
And we can get women to light Shabbos candles for Hirsch ben Parochana. So every week I was going with my friend Batya to the mall to give out Shabbos candles. Yeah. For Hirsch, we took his picture. We tell people, for all the hostages, obviously. But we would mention Hirsch ben Parochana by name. And different soldiers put on tefillin with his picture. And we would say, and always Rachel Goldberg-Polin, she said, this gives me so much strength. So many people actually put on tefillin. And even my sister Menucha, who is a teacher in the high school here, Mrs. Shachat, her class took on all these achlatas about Shabbos. Oh. And they wrote all these, let's say, not to rip tissues, I don't know, they wrote different things. Right. To daven mincha before candle lighting, to go to shul, all different things. It doesn't have to be to start keeping Shabbos, but different additions. Right. And they made this beautiful painting of a soldier with tefillin and all these achlatas for Hirsch ben Parochana. I remember I brought it back from the Kinnos last year, and Rachel was so very touched. So anyhow, one of the things we did with soldiers was put on tefillin with them. Yeah. So we know that every mitzvah counts. Right. What a schus for Hirsch that when his neshama left this world, besides the fact that any one of these people, these thousands of people who have given their lives on Mesiras Nefesh, anyone who was killed during this war, just because they're Jewish, it says has the highest place in Gan Eden. But in addition to that, he has thousands of mitzvahs of soldiers and laymen and people who did these mitzvahs for him.
I want to ask you a question about that, because I think that specifically with Hirsch, there was this extreme connection that people had to him, coming from an English speaking family, his mother being so vocal on social media and in all forms of media, actually. And we all felt so connected to her and to him. Absolutely. There was such devastation when all the hostages were killed. And that feeling of we've been doing so many mitzvahs. We've been putting in so much effort. It did feel how could Rachel's son not come home alive? What is that? How do we interact with the devastation after putting in so much spiritual effort and believing mitzvahs are eternal and also being upset with God, do better.
Absolutely. What happened that morning, it was a Sunday morning. I woke up to all these messages. People know that I'm her friend. that's how I found out. I didn't find out from the news. I was getting all these, and like I couldn't stop crying that day. Like I kept on just tears, and till I even found the words, to reach out and what to say and what to write to Rachel, because I was devastated. You were devastated. Everyone was devastated. So how is his mother supposed to, how are the immediate family members supposed to feel? So there was a lot of devastation. I remember it was before our daughter's wedding. So, I had to try on dresses, and I was like, who wants to try on dresses? Everything felt so lame and empty, compared to this devastating loss. So Rachel herself said, it's interesting because there's a video. I looked back at it. She actually spoke for the campus shluchas. They had a Shabbaton in Israel. And just a few months ago, it was around Shavuos time, before Shavuos, and she agreed to come to Kever Rachel to speak for 150 campus shluchas. And what's amazing is living in a world that without ear, as she described it, knowing, that Hirsch is every moment in the dark tunnels of Gaza. And it's like being in that space for 11 months. And she was able to come and speak with Emunah Mitachon and inspire the shluchas. And I remember afterwards, like so many shluchas came over to her personally and hugged her. And she really connected to all of these shluchas, which was incredibly beautiful. But on this video, she's like, I know. She said, I know. I believe it. And I know that Hirsch is coming home. She says, I don't know when and I don't know how, but I know that he's coming home. And what she shared afterwards with her Akar Satov, having, what a level, what we're seeing in Am Yisrael, to have Akar Satov in this unfathomable grief. But she said, not everybody has that gift, that they were able to give Hirsch this beautiful, majestic, holy burial in Eretz Yisrael. They got him whole. He did come back home. I don't know when and I don't know how, right? It was not how we wanted it. It wasn't how we davened for it. But I'm saying, first of all, the Hakara Satov, that in and of itself is already a nechama. It's a huge nechama. We know for a Jewish person to it's like a tremendous thing for the neshama. And it was like the most majestic, like I said, this awe-inspiring, unifying event of Klal Yisrael. That's now, aside from that, it doesn't take away, it doesn't minimize that we're devastated, we're disappointed. We all wanted to have that happy ending, like imagining, Rachel Goldberg-Polin, and she's coming with Hirsch, and coming in all the Sudas Hadoyan. I had all these imaginations. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we were going to tell him, like, these are all the mitzvahs, and here you are with us. We were all ready for the live homecoming. Yeah. Not the when and how of how it actually played out. But this is going back, to Shara Bitachon. Somebody once shared this, actually, Rabbi Katz, Alav Shalom from New Haven. He shared with a woman in our community. He was instrumental in reuniting a woman from our community who's named Zisi with her brother, who was actually lost, disconnected from his family. He was lost in Thailand. They didn't know where he was for years, okay? Rabbi Katz was instrumental. It was like a whole string of, Ashkacha Pratis in finding, this wayward lost brother and connecting him with the family with Zisi. So they saw each other before this brother passed away. In any case, he says to Zisi, who knows which chapter of Tehillim or which tears of one of your grandmothers or great-grandmothers was the schus that brought your brother back, that, brought this reunification. So anybody who did this mitzvah, for Hirsch or anyone else you're davening for, and you're davening and you're really doing these transformative mitzvahs, and then, the person doesn't recover, or, whatever, the outcome isn't as, trakuf etzayin good. We don't have that, like, palpably good outcome. So first of all, what I shared earlier, of course it matters. Of course it did something tremendous and transformative for Hirsch himself, who was on his own journey at this point in time with Yiddishkeit. He was on his own journey, which Rachel recently spoke on Rakla Minu's Yortzeit. She said, even though he was on his own path and he told his parents, I'm not going to be observing Shabbos like you right now, She said he was so makpid on kippur avim. This is what she was asking people, like, what could you do in his merit? That she said every time he met her, he would have a kippah.
Wow.
The grocery store. He was so respectful of his parents. Always, when like you would see them in the house, out of the house, always like fully up to their standards. And she said he went to shul every week in the evening and in the morning with his father.
Wow.
And his mother, she said, you told us you're not like keeping Shabbos like us right now. Why would you go to shul like twice? So he said, I don't want Abba to have to sit alone. So, that she said he was all about like that respect. But what I'm saying is there was still, think about like people actively observing Shabbos and putting on tefillin every day and all these things as a schus for him. Of course it matters.
Yeah.
Because we know that this world is transient. Mm-hmm. And what lasts with the neshama, this is all the whole idea of Parshas Chayesara.
Yeah.
That ultimately the real life is the neshama. So we gave something eternal to Hirsch. You can't take that away. And what I was saying with the grandmothers, you don't know which person in another corner of the globe or generations later will have a schus from those mitzvahs and might be saved, etc.
It's a beautiful.
Can I share with you I just heard this mashal for Parshas Chayesara because it's Chayesara?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's from Rabbi Yeshua Gordon, but it's written in the Midrash.
Yeah.
So this man is summoned to the king, and it's really not good news. If someone's summoned to the king, they basically say farewell and, prepare for another reality. So he turns to his three best friends. He goes to the first best friend, I was summoned to the king. I'm so nervous and scared. And the first friend says, you know what, I'll accompany you to the city capital, but then I'm going to have to part ways. So he goes to his second friend, and the second friend says, I love you so much. We're so devoted to each other. I'm going to escort you all the way to the palace gates. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to be with you. But at the palace gates, I'm going to have to part ways. And he's so dejected. And he goes to his final third best friend. He says, I was summoned to the king. Mm-hmm. I'm so nervous. I'm so scared. And the third best friend says, you have nothing to worry about. I'm going to go with you to the city capital. I'm going to walk with you to the palace gates. I'm not going to leave your side. I'm going to stand with you when you're interrogated in front of the king. And I'm never, ever going to leave you. And the parable is that in life, we have three best friends. The first is like our money, our real estate, our physical possessions. And it says the tachrichim, like the burial shrouds, they don't have any pockets. Yeah. So you come to the city capital, and then, a person finishes their physical life and they part. Yeah. Then you have your friends, your family. Yeah. And that's a really big asset. It really raises the quality of life. And they say, we're not going to leave you. We're going to go with you to the palace gates. We're going to give you a proper burial. We're going to sit Shiva. We're even going to do mitzvahs in your memory, which is a huge gift, to the neshama that passed away. But we're going to have to part at some point. Like, we're going to start eating bagels and eggs at the Shiva, like Rabbi Gordon joked, maybe we'll even argue about the inheritance. We're going to have to part.
We're going to remain in this dimension.
I said it as a joke, but anyhow, the third best friend is the Torah and mitzvahs. Any mitzvah, any good deed, or any bit of Torah that you learned during your lifetime says to you, I'm coming with you. I'm never going to leave your side. When you're standing in front of that king, you're standing in the real world, the eternal world. I'm going to be right there with you. Never, ever going to leave you. So that's with Hirsch. It's still with him. That's the real best friend. So anyhow.
Beautiful. Yeah. And both of those things are true. On the one hand, we're devastated, and for every single one of the lives lost, all the hostages were killed, and obviously all the other losses as well. And we can also see the eternal nature of the mitzvahs that we've done, even if we don't receive the outcome that I think should have been.
Yeah. And also, Rachel would tell me a few times, it's a known expression. If it's not good, it's not the end. So I wrote her that, in this message after, like you told me, this can't be the end, it's a turn in the story. It's a dip in the story.
Definitely.
We're devastated. It looks like,
it's the end.
That's the end, but it's not the end. If it's not good, it's not the end yet. And we're like in these birth pangs leading to Mashiach. And all these people that we've been meeting, and unfortunately, I've been going to way too many shivas over this year. I mean, like so many other Jews in Eretz Yisrael, we go to all these places. We don't even know the families. We go with my brother's book, A Time to Heal, which is also in Hebrew. And I don't know, wherever we could, you just want to be there.
Yeah.
There's another Rachel Goldberg. It's interesting because they know each other, who lives in the same neighborhood as us. And recently, just like a few weeks ago, her husband, Rabbi Avi Goldberg, was killed in Lebanon.
Tragic. I can't.
43-year-old officer, a rabbi in Himmelfarb. He actually was a teacher of Hirsch. So they had a show. They showed this video, how he was in the video, these Rachel Goldberg-Polin and Rachel Goldberg were on a show together on Rachel Imeinu's yard site, because we're meeting Rachel Imeinu's every day. Like we're meeting Rachel's. They're in, 2024, they're walking the streets of Israel.
Yeah.
So they live next to each other. I was at the Shiva for Rachel Goldberg, the other one, sitting Shiva for her husband, Rabbi Avi, and they have 8 beautiful children, and at the front lines of chinuch, right? Bringing so many wayward teens back into the joys of Yiddishkeit, and they're both musicians. So Rachel plays the violin beautifully. This other Rachel Goldberg, not to be confusing.
Yeah.
And her husband was playing the flute. They played for Holocaust survivors. The kindest, most giving people, which is why at 43 years old with 8 children, when he has no obligation to serve in the army, he willingly served as a reservist for 250 days before he fell. His wife, bathing, cooking, being a nurse, doing all this on her own with the simcha, she said, because like, this is our part for the Jewish people. Like this is what we can do for the Jewish people. So, I mean, it's like real life heroes and heroines that we're interacting with every single day. It's extremely humbling. And actually this unity, like everybody feels everybody coming together, because at all these shivas, like you could see religious people, secular people, all kinds of people coming together. So I went to the shiva. They have these huge tents. The city hall has to like pitch up these huge tents because so many people are coming. Thousands of people are coming. It's not like a normal shiva where how many people does a person know, even if you're very popular.
Right.
Tons of people coming. And the local bakery was treating them to free breakfast. We stopped in because it's right next door. And the woman, the bakery owner, she's like speaking like it's her family member. She was like so broken. She's like, I'm just not the same this week. I'm just trying. I sent them free breakfast, from Nafen Eman. Incredible. And Avi, this soldier that I'm talking about at 43 years old, his mother was also sitting Shiva. She had one tent. Rachel, the wife, had another tent because there's so many people coming. And Rivka shared with me, she's like, oh, you're Chabad? I have to tell you a story. You're going to appreciate this. So she said, yesterday at the Shiva, this tall guy walks in and he comes over to the mom, Rivka, and he gives her these words of Nechama, of comfort. And she looks at him and she says, thank you for coming. Do we know each other? And he says, actually, we don't. I'm a rabbi, just like your son, from Philadelphia. And I read about your son and really his, incredible strength and sacrifice for the Jewish people. And I couldn't think twice. I immediately booked a ticket. And here I am. I flew from Philadelphia just to be here with your family because the Jewish people are brothers and sisters. She's like, this is what we're seeing. So it's so tragic and there's so much beauty and there's so much unity. And the name of this war, not by chance, is Charbot Barzel, which means Operation Iron Swords, Charbot Barzel, Iron Swords. But I saw this beautiful insight that there's a play on words. The Charbot is the same word as Chaverut, which means friendship and unity. When we have this unity, we're invincible. We're unbreakable. That's really the secret of our strength. And then the Barzel, which is the iron, is actually an acronym. I believe that Rizal says this, for Bila, Rachel, Zilpa, and Leah. So the feminine strength that we're seeing. Because, I mean, how are all these soldiers doing it if not for their wives?
Yeah. Like you described.
Front? Like this beautiful second Rachel Goldberg.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so many others. I have a good friend in our Chabad house, Sarah, and her husband Benaya also has been serving for months in Gaza, now in Lebanon. She has 6 little children.
Yeah, and it's
unbelievable.
Logistics and the mental load and
everything.
The anxiety and
everything.
It's a lot to carry.
Absolutely. And usually, this is Benaya Pletkin. He usually blows a shofar at Chabad of Baka. Like, he's known to be the Baal Tokea. He blows beautifully. And he was in Lebanon on Rosh Hashanah. And Sukkot, he was able to come out for some days. He was in our sukkah. They ate over. And he said that he was in the north, going from base to base, blowing the shofar for dozens and dozens of soldiers who all wanted to be part of that mitzvah. So, I mean, we have been visiting these different bases, like I said, and like, just you see their spirit, like when we bring them the music and they're singing like Anachnu Ma'aminim, we're believers, sons of believers. You just, so much, whatever you read in the headlines, which sometimes is really a downer.
Right.
Whatever, always the news, the media, they'd like to catch on to like the little dark holes.
For sure. Yeah, that's their job.
A little bit of schmutz that's in between the beauty. And like I said to my husband, it's like, it was so inspiring all the time that we go to these bases, even at the southern border, Gaza. We went met incredible soldiers. And I'm like, this is the real news. That's the real news.
There's so much faith.
People are so united, that there's so much faith, that there's so much beauty.
Yeah.
So much beauty in Am Yisrael.
Yeah. You're really seeing, I think we're all really seeing the interconnectedness of the Jewish people. And definitely just with everything going on, I remember someone, like my kid's pediatrician, being like, do you have family in Israel? Like she was asking me how we were. And we were saying like, we do have family in Israel, but I was like, that's not what it is. Like it's every single Jewish person is our family. And we always knew that, but you really feel it now, the way that we care so much about each other and want to show up for each other. And obviously sometimes family has, those disagreements. I'm curious to hear from you, like unity is such an important thing, Jewish unity, especially right now. And are there any ways that you could recommend, like investing in that Jewish unity? Like what are some ways that we could really lean into it more?
Great. That's a great question. And I wanted to say, you were talking about the interconnectedness.
Yeah.
That it's not just in Israel. I wanted to say that because I'm sure some of your viewers don't live in Israel.
Just yet. A lot of them.
Not yet. So like even all these like beautiful notes and artwork that I was bringing from Shluchas by the Kinnos to bring to Rachel Goldberg-Polin, this like interconnectedness, like the strength of like mitzvahs in LA for Hirsch, or my friend from, she's in another, her preschool sent a whole beautiful gift. There is this beautiful interconnectedness. Like it was amazing. Actually, I have a friend, Yehuda Steiner, who's a shlucha in Canada. This was like going back, earlier in the war, but she told me that a woman in their community, in their preschool, Chabad Gan preschool in Thornhill. No, I don't want Uptown Chabad. I want to give the right name. Okay. In Toronto, she tragically lost her brother, a soldier who had fallen in battle. So she was telling me that this woman from their community was flying to Israel to sit Shiva for her brother. It was like so sad. So I said to Yehudis, oh, if you give me the details, we could bring something from your community. So we brought my brother's book and a beautiful brunch from Holy Bagel. It's like a very tasty, dairy catering. And we went, it was like some yishuv outside Jerusalem. We showed up like in the rain with like all these gifts. And I'm hugging this woman who's actually a member of my friend's Chabad house in Toronto. And it's just like, it was like an international embrace. She was so moved. It was like she felt a hug from Canada that had walked in from Jerusalem, but
so connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the mitzvahs that are happening, whether it's in Chabad houses or schools or individual homes around the world, are making a difference. That's what I want to say. Like the rabbi who showed up from Philadelphia, this was who they remembered from the thousands of visitors who came from the north and south of Israel. And I'm sure they remembered them also. But the Jews in the diaspora, people have sent, also from Canada, we were their outlet because we were their funnel because we're a nonprofit in Israel. They sent like 25,000 Canadian dollars. We were able to get all of this gear for soldiers. Like, we were able to be their long arm.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is, happening from places all over. Anyway, in a practical note, like what you're asking, unity, it's like a very nice, fuzzy, warm topic, but actually it's still cheshvan, right? So we're coming from Rachel Iminu's yahrzeit. And I heard a rabbi share this. It was a nice idea. He said, like, picture the scene, right? Like, there's a home and there's this, woman. Okay, and she's packing a duffel bag filled with things for the soldiers in Israel. We love each other. And they're putting in all the items and there's this love and this unity. And in that same moment, right, she's like fighting with her sister in the room, or the petty things, right, with your spouse, with your children. And what he was saying is that what we learned from Rachel Imenu is what she's known for, her act of sacrifice, was for her sister. She gave the signs to her sister. Like, when it comes to Jewish unity, it's not necessarily about, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful, like to send things to soldiers across the world and to do things for strangers. But just as important, if not more, like, we know the highest level of tzedakah is for your own family members, it says. Yeah. Like, having a little more generosity, patience, a good eye with the people closest to us. I feel like Geula starts on the inside. I feel like that is something that makes such a big difference. Getting over politics within families, communities, like, it's all like from very much within. Actually, at our Torah and Tea this Tuesday, I thought this was very interesting. We were talking about the 3 mitzvahs of the Jewish women, right? Because they came back for Rivka when she went in the tent. And this woman asked a good question. One woman named Tiona, she asked, you need another sign? After all the Hashgacha practice of Rivka showing up exactly after Eliezer had davened to find the right girl, and then she was so generous and so kind. She had all of the right character traits in giving 10 camels water to drink, which was a huge feat. Yitzchak still needed like more of a sign. So this other woman named Shulamit gave a very profound answer, in my opinion. She said, sometimes people can be such heroines on the outside. They can be so kind to other people at the well, in the workplace, in the street. And the real question is, how hella, Sarah Imo, how are they in the tent? How does this person behave in their inner sanction, like in their inner space, in their homes? So I thought that was very profound.
So profound.
That when he saw that, like, in her inner domain, like in her tent, there was that ambiance and there was all of that spirituality and beauty and kindness. That's what clinched it for Yitzchak. And then he was ready to marry Rivka.
That's powerful.
So it's not sourced in the Mefarshim. This is fresh from the women of Baka, Jerusalem.
Fresh Chiddush in Torah. Yeah.
But there was something that resonated because we're talking about how can we make an impact? How can we make a difference? And it starts at home. The hardest place.
Yeah. I really love where you took that question, because I think that I know for myself, sometimes I can be like, I wish I could help, like I wish I could show up in that way, but I can't. And then kind of absolve myself of like being involved in the effort of unity and achdus and whatever it is. But turning the focus back into your home and your closest environment, it's like all the Jewish people are interconnected. We're kind to each other. We show up for each other. We love each other. So can we show up with that sense of unity in the places where it is, you're right, it's harder to show up with unity in difficult circumstances in your personal life than to pack a duffel bag, even though that is really beautiful. I don't mean to put it down, but it's more that, like, are we also showing up with unity in our private spaces? It's like a beautiful call to action.
So yeah.
Thank you. Gorgeous. What were you going to add something to that? No. Okay. Because I saw you like lean in and then you leaned back. Maybe you changed your mind. But
no, I was just going to conclude with a fresh story.
Oh yeah, you were telling me an incredible story. You just played the voice note for me right before we started of your aunt reaching out to you to give you this like incredible full circle moment that you just experienced. So tell us a little bit about how like a delayed flight, or really a canceled flight that kept you from going to where you wanted to go, led you to changing a few people's lives, quite literally, and also like the lesson there about how we interact with our circumstances.
Absolutely. So we started out by sharing the amazing Ashkacha Pratis, divine providence, of how a girl from New Haven is now, a shlucha in Jerusalem. But all of our lives are filled with these moments of divine providence. And we just have to like open our eyes, to take it in and appreciate it. So going back a few months, it was Gimel Tammuz.
Yeah.
And we had this beautiful dinner for bringing at our Chabad house. Many people wrote letters for the Rebbe's oil because really, in a very special way, my husband and I were supposed to travel together. That never, ever happens in all the years, that we're living in Israel. We take turns because we have the kids, Baruch Hashem.
Right.
And we were flying together for a very exciting reason, which was synchronizing with the 30th anniversary of Gimel Tammuz. So our oldest daughter, Mashka, was going to be getting engaged. Hey Tammuz in New York. And we made these tickets. It was a lot of effort and more expensive, but we were going to get to the aisle for Gimel Tammuz together.
So special.
It was huge. So we did not sleep the night. It was like a night flight. I was already making the Canva, Mazel Tov.
Yeah, like
designing it. It was like so much excitement.
Yeah.
And, dividing up our kids, which, basically owing a lot of people like our whole lives. I mean, it was like a really big favor.
Our undying love and appreciation.
Including a 3-year-old, like it's a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
And so we take this flight, which had a 1.5 hour stopover in Paris and then a connection to go to JFK. And everything that could possibly go wrong in Paris happened to us. We were like stopped at security. It ended up being a yogurt that took like 20 minutes out of that time. And all the personnel, for some reason, like we were misdirected. And instead of M, we ended up in K. And it's a huge airport. If you've ever been there, it's a really huge airport. And we had to like take a shuttle bus and then an elevator and an escalator. And it was like so. And then we were in the wrong terminal.
Okay.
So we had to, with 20 minutes to the flight, we had to go back down the elevator in a different shuttle bus.
Oh my gosh, I can feel the stress. I can feel it.
I mean, we were literally sweating. We were running and huffing and puffing. We come exactly at departure time to finally the correct gate. The plane is there, but they're like, we closed the gate. I'm sorry. There were other passengers from Israel together with us who were in the same boat. There was a mother and baby. I mean, the mother was crying. It's like, I have
the baby wasn't crying.
No, it's like, I have a baby. Nothing helped. Like, right. And, we went, of course, to the information desk. And after a few hours, it became clear that there were no flights to end up Gimel Tammuz in New York. Only the next day we could take a flight from Paris to New York. Of course, we were devastated. I mean, we were exhausted and very disappointed. And I remember actually I was on the phone with my sister Hani from Pittsburgh, and I said to her, it's Gimel Tammuz. There has to be a shluchas that we have here. There has to be a reason that we're here. It's fine. I just want to find the meaning in why we're here, So I contacted, we have an aunt and uncle, Rabbi and Mrs. Pesner, Rivi Pesner, and they're amazing shluchim in Paris. They actually opened like 8 educational institutions.
Wow.
And this was the summer. So I reached out to her and they were on a Gan Yisrael trip. They have the largest Gan Yisrael camp in Europe. And she said 5:15 p.m. we'll be back from the trip. So we traveled from the airport and we come there. It's called Sinai. And we see like hundreds of Jewish children saying the psukim. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And my aunt and uncle graciously welcomed us into their home. We were like happy to just rest our weary bodies for a little bit. And she said, in an hour and a half, I'm going to a challah bake for women for Gimel Tammuz. Do you want to come with me? And of course I said yes, even though I was really tired.
You're like, maybe this is it.
Yes, I was excited. I was excited that there was like something. Yeah, exactly. So like a little more freshened up, we traveled. It was like a half hour away. And my aunt explained to me that this is Zalmi's Ma'on. This is one of the 8 institutions that they started. It's a new state-of-the-art preschool, wooden, beautiful. And they started it in memory of their son Zalmi, a beautiful, beautiful Nechama, Baka, who left this world young. He passed away from an illness. And they took all the sadness and tragedy that we were talking about earlier, and they've just channeled it into doing all these mitzvahs and starting this beautiful preschool where they reach families in this posh neighborhood. It's like more central, I guess. It's a posh neighborhood, like a half hour off from where they're centered in Sinai. And I see these like fancy women coming to this beautiful event with all the French spread and pastries. And my cousin is the DJ. They have music and dancing and all ingredients. It was really beautiful. I'm taking it all in. And I got a beautiful tour of Zalmi's Ma'on. And then my aunt, Rivi Pesner, looks at me and she says, so you're going to be the speaker. So I'm like,
Tricked
okay,
you.
Right. She did not tell me before we left. She asked me if I wanted to come. Got to slowly build it up.
Yeah.
Now that I was there. So anyhow, I
probably
said,
easier on you too.
Give me a few minutes.
Less stressful.
Give me a few minutes. And then I'm thinking like, what should I share? And something, from my heart, I decided to talk about Shabbos candles, Mifta Neshek. And I told them, obviously Hashem and the Rebbe wants me to be with you here on his yard site, because it wasn't in the plan, but I'm with you. And I want to share with you about Shabbos candles and this unique story that actually we shared at our daughter Mushka's Bas Mitzvah, going back like 8 years before. We centered the whole Bas Mitzvah about Shabbos candles, and we showed this video clip, which you could see on Gem. Yeah. Rabbi Cousins shares how his aunt was very ill, and the doctors had said that one of her legs was going to have to be amputated, and even maybe the second leg. It was such a dire situation. And he was a Bachar in Crown Heights. So Rabbi Cousins was sent to ask the Rebbe for a bracha for his aunt, which he did. And the Rebbe replied, Shetizaher, lahadlik neros Shabbos kodesh, kodem hazman. She should be careful to light the Shabbos candles even before the time. Immediately they conveyed the answer to this aunt. And she said, wow, like how does the Rebbe know? How does the Rebbe know? She was far away, but she said she was a religious woman with a lot of children. And she said, that is exactly my challenge. I'm always running and hustling. You know how it is, Erev Shabbos. There's always something else to clean and to bake and to do. And she said, I always go into the 18 minutes. I'm never on time. I mean, she lights before sunset, but she's never on time. Definitely not early. She took it upon herself, the power of Achlata Taiva. Like she's really, really going to commit to this. And talking about what we can do, like you don't have to do a lot of big, huge things, but even taking one achlata, like one thing and making it real, making it yours, has this power to, you're not going to believe it, it's a story in a story, but the night before Rosh Hashanah, I was walking in our neighborhood and there was all of a sudden an alert on my phone, get into a shelter. Ooh. Immediately, and all of a sudden there's these sirens, and it was the first time, because I'm living in Jerusalem, I've gone many times to a shelter, but it's the first time I was on the street.
Yeah, that's very
like, stressful. Where do I go? So I see a Sephardic shul, so I go into the Sephardic shul and follow the stream of people. There's a bomb shelter. Yeah, it's really cute because it's actually like, it's a small intimate room, but they have like an Aron Kodesh because it's in a shul. It also has like these holy books and everything. Shelter, and it turns out we end up being like 30 people from the street. People who were at the bus stop, or like me, people with grocery bags. And it was like an ingathering, a kibbutz galuyos of like, I heard people speaking Russian, English, Hebrew, Sephardi, religious, non-religious people, a whole mix of like everyone you can imagine, young and old. This one like Sephardi girl, and she was like in her jeans, and her short top, and she actually like fell into my arms in a hug. Like she started to, like I hugged her back. She was like shaking like a leaf from anxiety, like a teenage girl.
Wow.
And she asked me, like, could you help me to say Tehillim? She's like, I want to say Tehillim. And she was like saying Shir Lamalot, like turning our eyes to Hashem heavenward. And I was just like looking like, look at the beautiful, like everybody's such a believer. It doesn't matter what they look like on the outside. In any case, in the Sephardic shul, one of the members, he calls out, he's like, it's Erev Rosh Hashanah. Let's all take upon ourselves Kabbalot all Malchut Shemayim. Like, let's all take on ourselves the yoke of heaven. And he started to say, he said, you know, it says that if you even take one good resolution for the new year, one resolution, and you hold on to it, it creates a chut shel rachamim. It creates like a thread of compassion that protects you and blesses you for the entire year. So that just stood out for me. And then in the end, it was amazing. We're like in this bomb shelter, Erev Rosh Hashanah, and they start calling out in their Sephardic intonations, like, Shema Yisrael. And like, we called out Shema Yisrael. Everybody answered after.
Everyone together.
Hashem Hu Elokim,
wow.
Even though it was not Yom Kippur, but Hashem Hu Elokim. And we were, and it was like incredible.
Wow.
We were reading Tehillim together, and they started to dance, you know, all of these songs of faith. I took videos, like I sent it with my family. It was actually really, really incredible.
Experience.
But I was telling you about this one good resolution that you hold on to. And we're going back to the story I'm sharing in Paris on an unexpected detour from our trip to the Ohel. And the aunt of Rabbi Cousins took upon herself that she's going to light candles even early.
Right.
A week later, they come for the pre-op tests before the scheduled amputation, and the doctors declare a medical miracle. Not only does the second leg not need to be amputated, but not even the first. And slowly but surely she healed and was able to walk on her feet. And she was so careful about lighting Shabbos candles on time. So I share with the women that I shared this at Mishka's Bas Mitzvah. And 5 months later, a woman in the community, her name is Tahara, actually, came over to me and she said, I need to share with you, you know, we were trying to have kids for quite some years already. And at the Bas Mitzvah, I was so touched by the story with Rabbi Cousins and the Rebbe that I took on myself to be careful, to light on time, even a little early. And I'm expecting now, I just wanted to share it with you. And Baruch Hashem, since then, they have to be healthy children, Baruch Hashem. And so the women in Paris, like, they received it well. And this one staff member, like an attractive Israeli blonde woman, comes over to me and she told me, you know, I'm trying to have kids for a long time. And that really spoke to me. And I'm going to try to take that on myself as well. I also told them, if you want, you could write letters. I have a stack from Chabad of Baka, and they sat down, they took it so seriously, and like 20 women wrote panim for the Rebbe's Ayal. The next day, we had our flight from Paris, and I felt like I merited to be a shlucha of the Rebbe in Paris. That's where I had to be, and I ripped the letters, you know, of these beautiful women from Paris and put their prayers in. And I felt like, you know, Baruch Hashem, that's where we were meant to be.
Before you tell us the update, I just want to tell you that, like, you are such a great storyteller, setting the tone, all the little details. Like, I feel like I'm there. I can envision it in my mind.
That's
just want you to know that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then you have this, like, so you already felt then that you had this shluchas. You were like, okay, so that's why I came. Like, I needed to be there. I needed to share this with them, take their letters to the Rebbe Zohel and ask for a bracha, you know? And then you
it gave me so much.
You're like, this is why I came.
Inspiration. Yes. It like turned the whole negative experience to like such a positive one. And of course I shared it with our women's group in Baka. And then I thought it was the end of the story. A week ago, my aunt Rivi Pesner leaves me this voice note, which I shared with you before this discussion. And the voice note says, I just want to give you an update of good news. So in Zalmi's Ma'on, there's all of a sudden a big baby boom. Apparently, quite a number of those women had written those notes, davening, asking Hashem for a bracha to become pregnant. And they were writing this to be sent to the Rebbe's Ayal. And she said, like a lot of those women are now expecting. And remarkably, this blonde Israeli woman, a staff member who didn't have children for many years, is pregnant now, subsequently. So Mirz Hashem, in a few months' time, there will be all these beautiful Jewish babies in Paris. And it's just so special when you get to see that hashgacha pratis, like you get to see a glimmer, a peek, you know, behind the curtains. and to see what we know is true. This is what we learn in Shara B'Tachon. I mean, this is what, Yiddishkeit and Chassidus teaches us all the time, that everything is by divine purpose. Everywhere where I am, all the challenges that I'm going through, even the dark moments, is part of this master plan. And Hashem is, just leading us and everything in this masterful way.
And that story is incredible, like just seeing the outgrowth of your sharing. And sometimes we get to see it and sometimes we don't. What I think is so incredible about that story is that we are divinely led to different places, but there's this collaboration that we do with Hashem. You could have easily said, like, I'm so tired and I'm exhausted and I have to like rest for the l'chaim, and my daughter's getting engaged. And when she asked you, like, do you want to come to the challah, said no. And that saying yes to going. And then when you were there, when she asked you to speak, and you could have said, listen, like, I'm exhausted. I just got off of a long flight. And saying, you know what, Hashem clearly led me here. And also you were looking to see, like, why am I here? So she's asking me something, like, maybe this is what I should be doing. I think that's a tremendous lesson, which is that, like, we're always being divinely led and we get to choose if we answer the call. Like, we can be like, you said that. You said that to your sister. Like, I landed in Paris. I feel stuck in Paris. Or you mentioned like a beautiful story, which I'd love for you to say. But I feel like I'm stuck in Paris. But like, there's for sure a reason why I'm here. Like, this didn't happen by mistake. So I'm going to look out for the clues of why I'm here and what my purpose is here. That, I think, is like the key to really being able to experience that divine feeling of being led, is looking for it so that we could answer the call when it's asked of us. Because
I think that's a great point. I think so much of what we experience in life is our own mental space. And sometimes an inner shift actually shifts the reality. So I agree with you 100%. Because sometimes we can be experiencing darkness and a low, and actually nothing changes on the outside, but maybe we have this kind of like a mental shift of like, sure, okay, 1 second, like, let me try to rise up to this occasion. Like, what could be my shlichus in this?
Right.
And then I agree with you. It's like a channel to then hopefully be able to witness that, like, in a tangible way.
Totally. Huge. And you told me that the great story about Mrs. Popak, about being stuck, that like, Jew is never stuck. Tell it to us. And we'll end with that.
So this is a little bit humorous. We'll end with this. So later that night, we came back from the challah and we were all on a high. My aunt was on a high. I mean, it was a very like a beautiful, uplifting gathering, and, women connecting, crossing the barriers of language and countries, etc. So my husband, and we were, in the kitchen with my aunt and I and my husband and uncle, Rabbi Pesner. And my uncle shared, it reminds me when we got here in Paris on Gimel Tammuz, it reminds me of a story of my grandmother. My husband's grandmother is Miriam Popak, Zechrona Livracha, and the Rebbe actually chose her to lead Neshei Chabad, going back, some years ago. And they were on a Neshei convention to Chicago. They had like an annual Neshei convention, and they have a flight back to come back to their families in Crown Heights, and the flight is canceled. Snowstorm in Chicago. So of course, these are women. A lot of them have young children at home and everybody needs them. So they actually called the Rebbe. They called the secretary, the Rebbe, to ask for a bracha. And Miriam Popak, my husband's grandmother's on the line. She says, please convey to the Rebbe that we're a group of women in Sheikh Abad and we're stuck here in Chicago. And the secretary's repeating to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's asking, it said they're stuck. She says, yeah, we're stuck. Like, there's no flights and we need to get home. And she could hear the Rebbe's voice saying that these women, please tell the women, as a Yid is kemonish stuck. Please convey to the women that a Jew is never stuck. There's no such thing as stuck. You are where you need to be, where Hashem wants you to be at that given moment. And the women, inspired, they went around this airport in Chicago doing Mifsa Neshek. Wow. Same thing we're talking about, actually. And they gave out Shabbos candles to different women and girls, and they shared context, because the postscript of this story is that there are actually people who are now connected and observing Torah and mitzvahs today because of this meeting that they had with Neshei Chabad in an airport in Chicago, where they were not stuck. So my husband was sharing that came to mind when we were here in Paris. So my uncle quipped, because when I went to the challah, my husband fell asleep, which was completely natural. We
probably exhausted.
Night. And my uncle says to him, okay, maybe it's true for your wife. He says, but you were taka stuck.
You're actually stuck. Yeah.
So
that's the story of the Rebbe is so incredible. Like a Jew is never stuck.
Stuck.
Yeah. And also, I think it really encourages us to have an openness to life. When you are, in general, even when I think
not only physically stuck, you're saying mentally, you're just not, there's no such thing as being stuck.
Yeah, of course. It's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing. And also when they're in the airport, I think that the concept of mivtzaim is this openness to the people around you, this generosity of spirit, willing to share. So when you're stuck, when you end up in an airport where you don't want to be in, I definitely think that most of us close up and go inside of ourselves. You go on, I don't know, you just keep busy. You don't open up to the people around you to share of yourself, to give to them in some way. And that reaction of saying, oh, I'm here, so let me look around me and be open to these people around me. And we don't know what will happen with those connections. And very often, even if we don't see that people's lives transform, I think we see in our own lives that those small micro moments and connections, shift our journey slightly and other people's journey slightly. And we don't always see a big grand ending, but you feel the change of the wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This was so beautiful. And what's coming to mind for me is that I want to put a link in the show notes for people to give to your Chabad house to support the work that you're doing right now in Israel. Obviously there's so many causes, but hearing from the woman who is doing it and being able to support you would be so special. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing from your heart. That was so enjoyable. I loved that. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And may we all just merit really to see what our purpose is.
Yeah.
Open ourselves up to, what is my shlichus in this given moment in my, Dalit Amos of my ohel, in my little tent, in my little family. How can I make a ripple effect that ultimately will bring the long-awaited geula that we're all so much waiting for? So thank you, Tanya.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, learned something, gained something, I'd like to welcome you to share the podcast with a friend who you think might like to hear it. New episodes of the podcast come out every single Sunday morning, so if you don't want to miss a single episode, then hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed today's episode and could take a quick second to leave a rating or review, it helps other people find the podcast, and I love to see it. You can find me on Instagram at humanandholy or via email at humanandholy@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.